right, we are live. I'm excited for today for this DB Impact Live. We're going to be talking with Lucie McGuire today. And Lucie and I actually met through J.R. Spear through Business Leaders Network. But Lucie is a multi-passionate entrepreneur. She's the founder of a nonprofit called The Traveling Youth. And she's also the owner of Get Real Social and Moxie Adventure Partners. So Lucie is an entrepreneur after my own heart, where she has her hands in so many different things. And she's doing a lot. And so really excited to talk with you today, Lucie. So I guess starting off, can you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll dive into all the different things that you got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on here. I love, speaking with other entrepreneurs who are doing incredible things. So appreciate you, Drew. Yeah, my name is Lucie McGuire. Thanks for the intro to those businesses. Essentially, I am an impact-driven entrepreneur who just is very passionate about a lot of different things. So I pour my passion into those initiatives. And so I own Get Real Social, which is a social media agency focused on organic social media strategies. So focusing on strategies without paid ads. We do social media coaching and management. And then I have Moxie Adventure Partners, which is a freedom-based business for entrepreneurs and community where we actually teach entrepreneurs how to take back the freedom they said they wanted when they started their business through entrepreneurship, self-development, and travel. And that is an online community we just launched. And then all of that is for the purpose of creating connection, but ultimately being able to fund the Traveling Youth, which is a nonprofit, and we help underserved college and trade students take study abroad trips overseas through impactful study abroad programs that change their life and help create a better workforce for our society here in the United States. So
I love it. Yeah, when you and I first originally talked, I think that was the one thing that, we talked a lot about impact, right? And I think there's always that struggle from a business owner standpoint where it's like a lot of times you get into business because you want to make an impact in some way, shape, or form, right?
yeah.
Whether that's more time with your family or whether that's making more money to donate or more time freedom to go do the things that you want to do. I think that's always the dream. And ultimately, as you know, and you and I talked about, a lot of times that doesn't happen overnight, right? And there's a lot of things that happen before you actually get to those places. But I'd like to kind of start at the beginning because I think your journey into entrepreneurship is awesome. And I'd love for you to talk just a little bit about like what kind of sparked that? How'd you get into it? Where did you start? Let's start there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's funny. It's like when you think about being an entrepreneur, I think that there's some people who innately like want to do something bigger. And maybe when I was younger, I might have had like those spark of dreams of like things that I wanted to do. But, I never really had this like one direct path where I was like, yes, I'm going to do this and be this. And it all really started with my passion for travel. I'm from a small town in Florida, Jensen Beach, Florida. I didn't really go on vacations or big luxury trips, and my family didn't really have a ton of money growing up. So I was just like working since I was 14, going to college, getting a job, making sure I was working 60 plus hours a week in my early 20s, and really kind of just burning myself out a lot. When I ended up, my dad got into bad health and everything, ended up losing my father when I was 21. That is what really sparked the shift in my life, because I was like, something has to change here. Like, I'm not really happy with what's going on. I had a relationship I was in, and it wasn't the best relationship that was right for me. Nothing against that person, but it was just not where I needed to be. And I was more stuck in complacency and that comfort, right? I think a lot of us get stuck in comfort a lot more often than we probably like to admit. And so when things shifted for me was when my dad passed, and I was like, I realized things weren't really going the way that I wanted and life was short. And I was like, you know what? Screw all of this. I'm going to go and travel. And I took the little bit of money that I ended up getting from the life insurance for that. And I tried to buy a house with it. It didn't work out. And then I ended up studying abroad in Czech Republic and Hong Kong, and then backpacking to 10 different countries. This was over a span of 4 months in the summer of 2018, 22 years old. And it completely changed my life and my view of the world, my view of myself. I found myself and I didn't know I was lost. And I know that sounds cliche, but that was like truly the beginning of what Lucie is today, this big traveler. I've been to 35 countries in 29 states, and people are like, whoa, that's crazy. I'm a little little travel addicted, obviously. But it's like I'm like so curious about other people and cultures and learning about other people and having those conversations. And what ironically happened was I ended up starting my nonprofit before I ever even started a business, which I didn't think was going to happen. Or the logical progression would be start a business, make money, and then donate to start a nonprofit. And Lucie's logical brain was thinking that in 2020, when I started my YouTube channel, a travel YouTube channel, I was like, I kind of going down this travel influencer route for a second. But then when I reached out to the previous professors I did my study abroad trip with, they were like, oh yeah, you should. I was like, is this a good idea? The nonprofit idea that I had in 2018 after my trip and everything, like that's where it really cultivated. But I was broke when I came back. So in 2020, when the pandemic happened and I had time, I reached out to the professors, told them about the idea, and they were like, you should implement this. And then like literally I had a roadmap pretty much just paved, like do it. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing it. And so I started the nonprofit before I ever had a business, which is pretty much like starting a business, but I was, 25 years old figuring it out. And just, messy action, right? Of just like, hey, like, how do I get this going? I was really passionate about it. I knew it changed my life. I was convinced it would change others. And then a couple years later down the road, when things didn't work out at my company that I was at, like I was working for someone else doing marketing. I've been in marketing for the last 10 years, decade. And then when people started going to the internet because of the pandemic and everything too, that's where my influence on social media through the company I was working with really started to get traction because I was making title insurance interesting somehow online. And people were like, wait, how do you do that? And then when things didn't work out and I wanted more freedom, I wanted to be able to work remotely because I got a taste of that life during the pandemic. That is what led to me actually launching Get Real Social, the social media agency. And that is what has been able to provide the freedom of time and location to be able to live that life that I wanted and still be able to have those conversations, et cetera. And then, it's just kind of snowballed from there. I feel like every entrepreneur, like we get all these ideas, we're visionaries, we're like, I can continue to create this impact. And now I'm just trying to shift things into a way with Moxie that's like more a whole Lucie of entrepreneurship, self-development, and travel, and all the pieces of my life that mean the most to me, and packaging it to help the next entrepreneur who wants to take that impact. So it's all interconnected and weaved. I know you know how that is, Drew.
No, for sure. And it's funny because like what we were just talking about before we went live is like what I said is like the realization I almost had this morning, which is I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, when you're building your business, you're in your head, you're like, oh, this is the direction. This is exactly how it's going to go. If I'm going to try and be as consistent as possible and get up at the same time and do all these things. But what I realized this morning is like the moments of chaos, right? Or where you feel like there's chaos. A lot of times those are the moments that wind up pushing you in the specific direction, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you have to almost live through those moments of chaos before you can have that time of, I don't know, not complacency, but just like calmness, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how you, I don't know how you feel, but like when things are calm, I'm like, okay, something like what's going on here? Like I gotta like, and it's almost that you stop yourself from creating more chaos for yourself because you like when you're used to living in that, like that shouldn't be the way that you grow your business, right? But a lot of us just that's a natural thing, I think, is like you start to learn to live in that chaos and it's like, okay, growth happens there, but like the real growth winds up happening, I think, right after that chaos happens, Yeah,
I think that really for people to find what kind of quiets that chaos as well in their brain is really important. And for me, like that weaves right back into travel because I travel, I'm a hiker. I live in Florida. I don't want to die when I go outside. Therefore, I have to leave the state in order to hike in an appropriate place,
right?
like where I am not going to die outside from the heat. So that is also weaved into the travel. But when I'm in nature calms my mind. Like I love like hiking, not only just pushing my body and seeing what my body is capable of to a degree. Like I'm not some like extreme workout person. Like I love food. So like, let's not get that twisted. I also travel for food, but
we're more alike than right? Like like I love food, so you said it. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like,
yeah, I'm like, food is an important piece, but I'm also hiking on the trail, pushing my body, and then when you get to that that mountain top and you're like, wow, okay. And you just sit there and you're hearing, I love when there's a river nearby and or you see water or like just nature in its beautiful self. It's like, that is where my mind rests. And that's where I'm like, okay, like, where can I reconceive? Sometimes I get the best ideas when I'm on a hike. And like, it's like, I need to like, all of a sudden my brain is cleared. And now it's like, oh, like this is the next thing. But you're right. Sometimes people like just live in that chaos and then they never give themselves breathing room. And I think that
Yeah.
happens a lot when we're in our
That
environments and this rat race.
that for me, I think is the most difficult, right? Is because a lot of times, and I say this, but it's not like a badge of honor by any means, but I'm somebody that if I'm not doing something or building or creating or like trying to push myself to like that next level, I feel like I'm falling behind. And a lot of times, like you need those moments, you need the week off, you need the couple days, whatever that is, or the hike. For me, it's like going to the gym, right? It is somewhere where I can just put music on, put a hoodie on, go work out, and just really think through the things that are constantly kind of in my mind of ideas or things of that nature, how to handle certain situations. But I think you're 100% correct. Like everybody's different in what they need. I'm somebody that can go long periods of time and live in that chaos and not sleep and do all that, but eventually my body is like, okay, hey, like you need to take a day off and go build something with your hands or do something that isn't sitting at a computer or doing what we're doing right now, right? But I think that's so imperative for business owners. I think everybody in general, but especially people that own their own business, growing businesses, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I actually think that's why I'm also such a big proponent of travel too, though, is because sometimes people can't find what that is. And when we talked about comfort, right? Everybody gets in
Yeah.
that comfort zone. And I realized this actually, and I did a video on it when I was just in Idaho in December for a workshop conference that I was at, learning how to vibe code, micro SaaS, all the things. Fun. Ironically, my app being called Chaos Compass, AI journal app.
Yeah.
But it's just funny because we're talking about chaos so much. But
Right.
when I was in Idaho, I realized, and I made a video about this, but I was walking to the downtown area. I was staying in a little like outside city area, and mind you, as Americans, we don't walk nowhere. We don't walk no. We're driving everywhere. I didn't have a car though, and I love exploring new places. So when I was there, I stayed at an Airbnb. It was about a 35, 40-minute walk into the main downtown of Boise, Idaho. If you told me it was a 30, 40-minute walk in my own town to get anywhere I needed to go, I would absolutely not do it. And I would get in my car and I would go. But like for some reason, I was like, oh yeah, like night and the weather was nice. So I was like, oh yeah, like let's do that walk, right? And I'm like taking this walk to get to my I'm going to find breakfast and then to work at the cafe down there in the city. And while I'm walking, I'm realizing this. I'm like, no way would I be doing this in Florida, like where I live. Like, absolutely not. But because I'm in a new environment, I'm willing to do something different, and that actually brought a lot of clarity of me thinking like while I'm on this 30-minute walk that's giving me time, just like sometimes scopes of driving, a lot of people get that time in driving when they're thinking, if they're not on their phone doing all the things they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And, like that is like sometimes we need to be physically removed from our environment in order to realize what are our patterns, right? And I think sometimes physical removal of the environment helps to be more clear on that.
I cannot agree with you more on that. And I'm not going to go, this is call is about you, not my
I love it.
last 10 years of my life. But that was one of the things that I really realized, like, especially sometimes when you go through, like I went through some pretty heavy stuff in the last 4 or 5 years. And what I realized is like, it wasn't the fact that I didn't want to be in my hometown, right? But there was a necessary removal of me for a period of time, because what happened was is like when you're in that same environment all the time, you don't really have the ability to, I think about things in a different way, because you're constantly being reminded of the patterns or the past or things of that nature, right? And so I am a huge, huge proponent of that. And so I think everybody's a little different, right? For me, it was just really removing myself from where I was for a period of time to really get some clarity and be able to think about things in a different way. And I'm a big proponent of not moving particularly to like, not picking up and like selling your house and moving to a different city, but sometimes it takes, I mean, you could sometimes, for me, sometimes it just took like a few days, right?
Yeah.
Of just being in a different environment around different people and those sort of things. And so I couldn't agree with you more on that, because you're right. You go to different areas and you're not going to walk 30 minutes somewhere else, but you're like in a new city and you want to see new things. And you're like, yeah, I'll take a walk. Like, no big deal.
Well, it goes perfectly into the point of even why the impact of what we do in the nonprofit, the traveling youth, is so important, because it's this exact situation. We're
Yeah.
taking these underserved college and trade students, 18 to 25. And I always say that you're not an adult at 18. Like, that's the biggest lie we've ever been told, is that you're an adult at 18. Like, every adult laughs. You're laughing. Every single time I tell an adult
Yeah.
that, they laugh, because they're like, yeah, when I was 18. Yeah. But yet we put this pressure and expectation onto them still. Like, I'm like, well, then stop putting so much pressure on them, because they're just trying to figure it out. I know 40, 50-year-olds, 70-year-olds still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to figure it out. We're all trying.
I think I want to stop. I think that's the biggest misnomer in the entire world, right?
I agree.
Is
I
like,
agree.
you're going to hit a certain age and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I got life figured out. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. And I think when
Never.
you're growing up, you see people that are older than you and you're like, oh, well, they must have it all figured out. And it's like, you get to that age and you're like, oh man, like, I don't know what the hell
Remember
I'm doing.
thinking 21 was so old? Like, oh yeah, I'm going to be 21 and I'm going to have my life figured out. That's the biggest joke I've ever heard.
Yeah, I thought in my head, I thought 25, and that, that surpassed me a
Your
while ago.
your entire is just figuring out who you are and what you want to invest your time in. That's what I believe in. And
Yeah.
so I see it so much as well with these students that we work with. So this 18 to 25 range is like a very special range, because you're going from childhood where decisions are made for you. Now you're in the first time in your life being able to make these decisions to a degree, right? You might still be underneath parental guidance to some capacity, right?
Sure.
And so these students who maybe grow up in situations that aren't the best support systems, financial systems, and opportunities like might not be around them as much as other people, right? Not to say that they can't go out and get them. I know that everybody's, I'll go the American dream, you can go get it. I'm not saying that they can't, but it's very hard when you know nothing else. If you've only ever known this world, and then there's this entire world out here. I call it a box. Everybody's born into a box. And it only takes one person to come along and open up that box and show you, oh, you can step outside and there's an entire world out here. So for these students, we actually take them overseas for a month-long study abroad program. And it is a cultural and educational experience. But we don't just take them on this cultural and educational experience and like say, oh, great and dandy, good. Like, you came back and you're all good to go. We actually have to measure it as a nonprofit, the impact of our organization. And so what we've realized, we have found an EQI assessment, emotional intelligence. And I feel like we do not talk about emotional intelligence in our society enough. We talk about IQ, testing results, all of these things, but we do not talk about EQ. But that is the number one thing that drives every single interaction we live, like every person on this planet, is emotion. And so helping these 18 to 25-year-olds navigate their emotions, understand their emotions, and understand how they're going to take these emotions on this trip and how it's going to impact them with a different viewpoint when you're going into new cultures, experiences, new environments.
Yeah.
We've seen, so they take it before and after the trip, we've seen upwards of 11% growth in areas like stress tolerance, self-awareness, self-expression, empathy, out of 15 different categories for these students over 2 months. Like, insane. And that has been tried and tested with multiple of our cohorts that we sent. We sent 2 cohorts. So we've seen growth on both, and it's been amazing to see. But then you also see it physically with them when they come back, and because they've been removed from their environment, that box, given an opportunity to blossom without other people telling them XYZ needs to happen, you need to do XYZ. They come back and now they're better equipped for not only society, but the workplace, their lives, their friends, like what they're trying to build, and they have more clarity because they've been removed from their environment. So that's like literally what we're doing at the at the Traveling Youth.
No, I love that. And that was and I know we've kind of talked, I'm glad you kind of dove. That was going to be my next question, is like, tell us more about that, because like I think that that's such an important thing. And I think we're also in a world where, like when I was growing up, it was like, okay, go to school, get a degree, this, that, all that. I haven't used my degree at all, right? Like I went to school to play baseball, and that's really like, if I wasn't going to play baseball, I would probably wouldn't have gone to college, right? It wasn't that I didn't have the grades or anything like that. Like school wasn't very difficult for me, but it's just funny. I think there is a shift that has been going on where it's, you start asking the question is like, okay, if you're not going to specialize in something specific, like what can you actually, what can you do? Right. And so I do see a shift, I think culturally, from like a higher education standpoint. And I'm not saying higher education doesn't have its place, right?
Of
Like
course.
I think everybody should explore whatever they think is like the best for them. I just know I see that shift, and I think that's like a big thing that I wish I would have had at a younger age, is like the understanding of options, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you get very tunnel visioned, or like your parents aren't sure. Like I was the oldest, I was the first person to really go to college, so it was like, okay, well, what do we do here? You know what I mean? Like what's and
Sometimes
they
your
don't,
parents don't
as
even know.
right. And they didn't, from a standpoint of like, they didn't get scholarships to play sports or anything like that. And then me and my sisters come along and they're like, okay, this is a new world for us. Right. But I think it's so awesome that you're giving like kids or adults, right?
Young adults, yeah.
The young adults, the opportunity to explore those different things, because I think those do wind up changing. You change your environment, you stop listening to everybody that's directly around you, right? Because they're all in
Mhm.
that same environment. And so I just think it's awesome that you're
Yeah.
doing that. How do people, like if there are kids or parents that have kids that are getting to this age, like how do they get in contact with you? Like how do they explore these options? Like tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the travelingyouth.org, and if in case someone likes to spell traveling with two L's, it's only one L. So that's like the European way of spelling it, is with two L's. But the travelingyouth.org, everything's on our website. We have our scholarships open year round, and but we have deadlines. So like after the deadline, it would go for the following year. We are right now at a point where we're trying to get to sending students every single year, but because of funding, because we are 100% volunteer ran, 100% donation driven. So by individual donations or individual businesses that are donating to us, which has been incredible because we just reached over $200,000 after the past 5 years that we've raised from that. No grants or anything, which is amazing. But we're going to be sending a group of students in 2027. Right now, we are only along the Treasure Coast of Florida, from like West Palm Beach to Vero Beach to Okeechobee, Indian River, but we are looking to expand and be able to go across the state of Florida, eventually nationally. That would be the goal. So anybody who's got connections in that space, like let me know. That's the future
Yeah.
goal. But yeah, that's the best way, is going online. So if you are in those areas, if you have a student who is studying and lives in those quad county areas, they can apply, and it's a really quick, it's a great application process. There's like a video interview they have to do and everything, but we do second interviews, and yeah, it's really great.
Very cool. Yeah, and we put it in the chat, and then I'll also add it to the post and everything so people
Awesome,
can
thanks.
see that. We're kind of getting towards the wrap up point, but I would love for you to talk a little bit more about the society that you just launched.
Ooh.
Who would be a perfect fit for that? Who you're looking to add to that society? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Moxie Adventure Partners a couple years ago, 2 years ago, but it's kind of lived on the back burner because of my other businesses and ventures. But this year is its year to shine, and we just launched our society called the Live with Moxie Society. Before I explain what that is, I do want to explain what the word Moxie means, because there is very much intention behind it, and many people don't know. It's an older word, but someone once told me that I had Moxie, and I was like, what does that mean? And they were like, Google it. So I did. And then it said grit, determination, and perseverance. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And I want other people to have that. So that is what birthed the name Moxie Adventure Partners. And the Live with Moxie Society is an online community. I really call it a movement because that's what it is. I'm on a mission to inspire 1 million Americans to travel internationally. And who knows, when I inspire those 1 million Americans, maybe we'll all throw a party internationally. And whoever wants to come from the list can come. Like feed into the message here. But the society is only $1 a month to be a part of. And then you'll be added to that list of 1 million people. And it is for entrepreneurs who want to take back the freedom that they said they wanted when they started their business. If they've gotten stuck, if you've gotten into comfort, if you are feeling like there's clogs in the machine that you're trying to run with an entrepreneur, I want to use the skills that I have and leveraging the community of incredible entrepreneurs who are joining an amazing skill set, like their own amazing skill sets, like you, Drew, and everything, right? To be able to provide this community of people who care about self-development, because I feel like most entrepreneurs are self-development junkies at heart. And when it gets down to it, travel, how we can implement that into our lives and what we want. And then entrepreneurship and how we can be better entrepreneurs, be better leaders in our society, and just how all three of those intersect. That is the target audience of who I want in that community. And the fun, even best part of it is 25% of everything that we make at Moxie Venture Partners and in the society does directly go back to the traveling youth.
I love it. I love the fact, Lucie, that you've taken all of these different passions, right? And I want to say something that isn't, I guess, specific to something that I see that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, try and get somewhere quicker than they should, right? It's really cool to see how the arc of kind of everything that you're doing has really started to come together. And ultimately, I know, and you probably know this inherently too, 2, 3, 4 years from now, it's probably going to look slightly different, right? And I think that's a big misnomer when people are starting a business is, unless you're in a specific like trade or something like that, right? There's different ways to do certain things. But I do think if you're somebody that is starting a business that's a little different, right? Or maybe not like a real niche, have the expectation that things are going to look different a couple years after you start. Because a lot of times, a lot of the stuff that I'm currently doing right now with DB Impact, the core of what I'm doing has always stayed the same, which is working with business owners, helping them grow, helping them get systems in place. But over time, we've added certain things where it's like, oh, the market needs this, or like I'm noticing that. And you start to add those things, and eventually over time, it starts to, I would say, come together a little bit more. Yeah. And I wish somebody would have said to me, hey, just start and just go. And then have discernment over, like, be okay with living in that chaos for the first year or two, right? Because a lot of it is figuring out, it's messing up. It's not a straight path by any means. And I think the moment I realized that was the moment I kind of gave myself a little bit more grace and saying like, okay, I can continue with the core mission, which is like to make an impact on as many business owners as possible. But now I'm starting different things because I'm realizing there's actually a need here. It's still for business owners, but it, 2 years ago, it wasn't even a blip on my radar, right? Yeah. And so I just love the fact that you've taken your journey through it and started to really kind of create and intertwine a lot of the things you're doing. And I just want people to know, like, that doesn't happen overnight, right?
It doesn't.
It's the trial and error. I can actually
speak to that a little bit more too, if I know we're wrapping up.
No, you're good. We got some time. Yeah. So
yeah, because I think you're absolutely correct. And I want to give a little bit more of an inside look of like exactly how we even got to Moxie Venture Partners, right? And I kind of weaved it. I love that you see the arch, right? I tell that to people all the time. And I'm about to speak to a group of students on Monday at the local college about this, like messiness or whatever. You never know what's going to connect your next path. I went from working at a pizza shop, being in marketing for that pizza shop, to title insurance, to owning a social media agency, to now owning a travel community and nonprofit, like in a nonprofit in that space, right? So it's like, it doesn't really, like if you go pizza, title insurance, nonprofit, like social media, like it's messy. But also to give an even deeper look to that too. When I mentioned it earlier that I went down this travel influencer phase, right? I'm going to make money with travel first before I start the nonprofit. Well, the nonprofit started first because it's its own divinity that needed to happen. But I started a YouTube channel called The Traveling Lucie. And I still have that page and I still am connected with people. Like when I'm traveling, that's what the page I connect with people. And, but originally I thought I was going to make money in the travel space as a travel influencer. Then I shifted, went into the title insurance marketing, all of that. And then went into the social media side of things and realized like, yes, I love marketing and I love social media. I love being able to help entrepreneurs. In that case, it's given me the freedom. I'm so grateful for my first, like that's my first true business. I'll be grateful every day for that. And I mean, it's still running and everything like that. It's not dead yet, but or it's not dead. But like, it's just I realized that my heart is aligned somewhere else, and I struggled for the longest time. I was like, where? How do I make money? People were like, oh, are you a travel agent? Absolutely not. No, I am not a travel advisor. I don't want to be a travel advisor. That's the first thing people assume when they hear travel. They say travel advisor. No, I'm not planning your trips. No, I'm not like gonna be booking you flight. No, I don't want that. At first when I started Moxie Adventure Partners, I told you where the name came from. At first, I was like, I love budget travel. I'm a budget traveler. I go and stay at hostels around the world for as little as $8 a night, and it's amazing. And that's how I'm able to travel so much. And I loved teaching other people about that. But at first, when I launched Moxie, I thought I was going to teach people about budget travel. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to like teach like, anybody who wants to learn how to budget travel that you can do it. And that's still part of the message to a degree. Like I'm going to be talking about that in my community. But what I realized, and then I was like, I'm going to do group trips. And I did a group trip to Germany with like just like random people. Like it wasn't entrepreneurs. And it was good. It was great. I love Germany. I got to see the Christmas markets. It was amazing. But it wasn't quite there. There was something missing and I didn't know what it was. But I was trying, doing all these things that we're talking about. And then I realized I love being an entrepreneur. I love talking to other entrepreneurs. I realized that people actually look at me and they say all the time, I wish I could be you. I wish I could travel the world. I wish I could do all these things. I'm like, I'm not special. You could do it too. And these are other entrepreneurs who own businesses. And I'm like, you literally you own your business? Go, like, make the time, do it. What do you mean? Like, what do you mean you can't do it? Like, why?
Right.
I realized that my true target audience was those entrepreneurs who were stuck like I was before I ever, like when I wanted to travel and have that freedom. That's why I started the business. And I actually lived up to that. So people saw that and they're like, oh, she started her business and she never stopped traveling because she loved that. And that was a priority to me. So now I have that. It's just become clear literally in the past 3 months where I was like, this is it. I care about self-development. I care about entrepreneurship. I care about marketing, self-development, travel, and entrepreneurship. And it's all of my skills in one that I can then feed in this community. And that is where you have to find the magic spark of what is passionate for you, because I think so many times people push people towards entrepreneurship and it's like, just go start this business or start this business. And it's all money driven. And it's like, listen, if you are not 100% passionate, you are not going to want to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning. Like sometimes it takes in order to make this business happen. So if you're not passionate about it, don't do it. Like, that's what I can tell you. If there's some burning fuel in you that's like, do it, then you will make it happen. But you have to, you have on it. Like
that is so incredibly raw and honest and so truthful, because you're 100% correct. I think the thing that I want to point out in like what you just said too is the fact that you didn't this word diligent has been coming up. Like I'm reading through Proverbs right now and all this stuff, and like the word diligent really just like kept really sticking out to me, and I wasn't sure why. So like I realized like a lot of the times we talk as entrepreneurs, we talk about perseverance, we talk about never giving up, we try, failing and all this sort of stuff. For whatever reason, the word diligent just kept really like sticking out to me. Right. And I realized that the consistency and the diligence in continuing to move forward, right, despite all of the noise and despite all of the things that are going on, that to me is, if I look at the people that I see that are successful in what they're doing, and it doesn't have to just be entrepreneurship. It can be in anything they're doing, right? But it's that word diligent. Like I said, I don't know why it just is like sticking out to me in the last few days, but I was like, I think that's the separation of a lot of people, is like, you're gonna have your idea and you're gonna go for it and it's not gonna work. and then
Yeah.
you need to modify it, and then you need to modify it again and change it up and change it up. And those eventually are, now you're in this position where you're like, oh, like it hits you where you're like, oh, this all works together. Like, why didn't I
Yeah.
see that before?
Yeah, I
Giving
know that moment's kind of sucks. And you're like, dang, why did that happen? Like, but you had to go through everything, right? You had to go through the struggle to see the clarity.
had to
Like you were
had
talking
to
about the chaos in order to see the clarity earlier.
big time. And I think sometimes we try and avoid chaos. We try and avoid difficult conversations. We try and avoid the things that we are trying to, like, we're almost like holding on to things that wind up
Yeah, it's
creating the chaos around
perfectionism.
us.
It's
Yeah,
society judging us. I mean, people tell me all the time, like, oh, I just don't want people to feel judge me. And it's like, you have to live. What is that? The thing that's going on where it's a trend. Oh gosh, you have to be delusional. Like, you have to be delusional about your goals. And like, you just got to be like accept that you are going to seem delusional, and then when you actually do it, people will be like, oh wow, good job, but they're the ones that doubted you to begin with, and
and
that's tough.
and I think, and we could go into the, I mean, you and I could probably sit on here for the next 4 hours and talk about like the next topic and the next topic. I think a lot of times that, what was the quote? Jay Shetty said it, and he
Mm,
said, like, I'm blanking right now, but ultimately, like, you're perceiving what you think other people are thinking about you, right? And ultimately what that really is like what you think about yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, we all think we're way more important than we actually are. And if that makes sense, like,
absolutely.
and at the end of the day, like, you're in control of your life, right? So if you're worried about what you think other people are thinking about you, this isn't
I,
going to work, right? Like, it's
so
just not
true.
going to work. And I
Okay,
lived
look,
there for
very,
a long
yeah,
time for sure. And eventually you get to the point where you're like, and I think that has to do with like like the security within
self-awareness.
yourself, like self-worth, self-awareness, like all of those things that I realized I had to
Emotional
go through.
intelligence.
I had to go through a lot of things to get to the point where it's like, I don't say that I don't care what other people think about me, because that's not true, right? Like,
Hmm.
and people that say that, I don't know if I always like believe that, because you do ultimately, right? You care, like, how you make other people feel, like the impact you're making on their lives, like all of those things. But I think you should care about it, but you shouldn't let it affect your life. And if you're confident with where you're going, not that it shouldn't matter, but it shouldn't affect your decisions if you are living in alignment with where you're supposed to be going, I guess, is where I'm trying to go
Absolutely.
with that whole word
No,
babble that I just said. So
no, I completely agree. I think that it just takes diligence.
it is. And like I said, I don't know why that word in the last like 3 days for me has just been like on my brain, like nonstop, is like, why it feels different than all the other words that I've ever used. And I'm like, I think that's the key, is like the diligence of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, Lucy, we're, like I said, we're farther along here time wise than usually anybody else. I figured this is how it was going to go, which is awesome. But I just want to say I appreciate you, one, taking the time, and two, just everything that you're continuing to do. I'm excited to see how you and I can continue to work together
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
we keep moving forward with our businesses.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you for having me. And thank you for the incredible conversation. I mean, I think conversation is the one thing that our world needs more of. And you never know how you can connect with people until you have that conversation. So thank you for having these conversations with not just me, but other entrepreneurs all over, and opening that up for other people to talk about too. So thanks, Drew. I appreciate you
You
and
bet.
everything you're doing.
Awesome. Have a good one.
You too.